Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a file that is, well, it's urgent, it's politically charged, and frankly, deeply troubling.
It really is. We're looking at the critical open letter from Franc ois Tain, which came out on December 21st, 2025.
And this document, it's a foundational piece of evidence for anyone trying to understand the crisis between Thailand and Cambodia, which has just been escalating since December 7th.
Exactly. Tain's letter isn't just a diplomatic note. You have to see it as a full-throated, legal, and I would say moral indictment.
That's a great way to put it. So our mission for you today is to unpack this brief. We need to get past the headlines about isolated border incidents and really get to Tain's core argument.
Which is that this is not some skirmish.
No, it's a calculated, full-scale military aggression by Thailand, and that Cambodia is, in his view, purely the victim.
And the source material lays out the stakes right from the beginning. It claims this aggression was deliberate, it was planned. We're talking simultaneous deployment of land, air, and naval forces.
Across a massive front.
A massive front. And maybe the most startling claim Tain makes is that the Thai objective was stated openly to invade Cambodian territory and, quote, plant the Thai flag wherever their army went.
I mean, that's a war of conquest.
It is, by definition.
So, to convince the world, Tain structured this letter around 5 fundamental arguments. And what's really insightful here is the order he chose. He doesn't start with the law.
No, he starts with the reality on the ground.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating, right? Tain clearly understands that legal claims can, fall flat if there's no moral or physical context. So he sets the stage first. Argument 1 is simply the impossibility of Cambodia being the aggressor.
Okay, let's unpack that power disparity a bit. As the letter describes it, Cambodia is just. It's vastly smaller in territory, much weaker economically, and completely outmatched in military resources.
The letter lays out the simple arithmetic. Thailand is described as being 3 times more powerful. Cambodia just doesn't have the capacity or, frankly, the military ambition to launch an attack on a neighbor of that scale.
So Tain is basically setting up a narrative where it would be. It would be suicidal for Cambodia to start this fight.
Precisely. And once he establishes that physical reality, he connects it directly to historical intent.
Right, which brings up Cambodia's long history of peace efforts since 1998. Why is that so central to proving they didn't have aggressive intent here?
Because it connects their national identity to their current actions. Tain stresses Cambodia's, decades-long dedication to reconciliation, to reconstruction after the horrors of the 70s and 80s. The core logic is this. Why would a country that has spent decades trying to achieve and maintain a hard-won peace suddenly decide to destroy all of that by launching an aggressive war? It makes no sense.
And he's very specific about the timeline, too. This isn't just, ancient history. He points to very recent peace efforts that were accepted just weeks before the fighting started in December.
Yes, that confirms the timeline he's drawing. He highlights Cambodia's acceptance of a ceasefire on July 28, 2025, and their signing of a joint declaration for peace on October 26, 2025. These are recent, tangible actions. They show a continued commitment to restraint, which really undermines the idea they just spontaneously decided to attack.
So that moves us from the physical reality into the foundational legal arguments. If argument 1 is about motive and capacity, the next 2 are an attack on the very legal basis of Thailand's alleged claim.
Right, we shift from the battlefield to the legal battlefield, specifically whose maps actually matter.
And that's argument 2.
Argument 2. It focuses squarely on the legal foundation of the border. Tain argues that Cambodia's position rests entirely on international law. We're talking documented, recognized, legally established treaties that have been around for over a century.
So which documents are we actually talking about here? Why are these 120-year-old treaties still the legal standard today?
We're looking at the Franco-Siamese treaties of 1904 and 1907. These are established during the colonial era, but they are considered the international baseline for the current boundary.
Okay, so Cambodia is relying on these.
On these foundational treaties, which were registered internationally, and crucially, Tain also cites the Memorandum of Understanding from 2000, the MOU.
The MOU from 2000. That sounds a bit more modern. What was the point of that document?
The MOU was a huge bilateral effort to find a joint solution. It was signed specifically to create a framework for measuring and delimiting the land border to get to 100% agreement. It represents a real, recent attempt by both sides to follow a peaceful process.
And how does Tain then use that MOU to indict Thailand's actions?
He contrasts it with Thailand's position. Tain alleges they're rejecting that bilateral framework. He claims Thailand is relying solely on, quote, unilateral maps produced and recognized by itself alone.
Ah.
So the implication is clear. If one side is using globally recognized treaties and recent agreements, and the other is using its own internal maps, well, the legal high ground is obvious.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because he connects that legal foundation in Argument 2 to Argument 3, which is all about Cambodia's consistent choice of legal mechanisms over, well, brute force.
Especially given their track record of success with that strategy.
Exactly.
Tain goes through the history of how Cambodia has handled border disputes in 1954, during the flare-ups between 2008 and 2011, and even the events in July of 2025.
And in every single case.
Every single time, Cambodia chose the same route. Go to international legal mechanisms, use the rule of law to solve the problem, not military action.
And that strategy has demonstrably worked for them, right? We're not talking about some obscure legal opinion. These are huge, high-profile wins at the International Court of Justice.
Exactly. The ICJ ruled in favor of Cambodia's sovereignty over the Phra Vihear Temple and its surrounding areas. Not once, but twice.
In 1962 and again in 2013.
Right. These are definitive judgments on sovereign territory.
Okay, wait a minute. Tain keeps bringing up these ICJ wins from 62 and 2013 about Phra Vihear. But isn't Thailand's counter-argument going to be that those rulings only cover that one temple site and its immediate area, not the entire 800-kilometer border that's now in conflict?
That's a critical point, and Tain anticipates it.
So how does he handle that?
While the rulings were specific to Phra Vihear, he uses them to establish a pattern of behavior and, more importantly, a pattern of success. His analysis is this. If Cambodia has a proven, successful legal strategy that secured key territory, why would it be logical, why would it be rational for them to suddenly abandon that winning strategy?
In favor of starting a war, they are militarily guaranteed to lose.
It's an argument rooted in rational behavior. It just doesn't make sense.
So Tain uses the ICJ rulings not just as proof of the border, but as proof of Cambodia's intent. They're the ones who believe in the rule of law.
Precisely. Which brings us to Argument 4, which is less about law and more about the moral anchor of the country. Cambodia's profound understanding of the cost of war.
This point really connects modern events to historical trauma. I mean, Cambodia is a country scarred by decades of horrific conflict, 2 wars and a genocide between 1970 and 1998. Peace and stability, as Tain notes, they aren't just political goals.
No, they're tied to national survival, to socioeconomic development. It's paramount.
It's everything.
And Tain is essentially leveraging a moral immunity defense here. He shows that Cambodia isn't just committed to peace internally, but that the international community has recently certified this commitment. He cites specific high-profile awards.
Like the World Peace Prize in 2021.
The Peace Prize for Humanity and the Planet in 2024, and a major ASEAN award just this year in 2025.
So Tain is saying, look at our recent history, look at our recent recognition. We were demonstrably a peace-seeking nation. So who's the aggressor here?
And that logically sets up the final argument, the big one. The undeniable military evidence of the December 2025 operation itself.
This is Argument 5.
Argument 5 is the factual, overwhelming evidence of the scale and nature of the attack, which Tain states was publicly ordered by Thai authorities. This is where the letter moves from theory and motive to the brutality of the act itself.
And the sheer scope he describes is just staggering. We're not talking small border incursions here. He describes offensives along more than 800 kilometers of the land border.
That is a wide-front military campaign.
And critically, the depth of the incursions, reaching 80 to 90 kilometers deep inside recognized Cambodian territory.
90 kilometers. That depth makes any claim of self-defense or a localized response.
Well, it's just indefensible under international law. You don't penetrate 90 kilometers deep to secure a fence.
Let's focus on the inventory he cites. What specific tools of war does Tain list that push this from a skirmish into a full-scale invasion?
The list is extensive, and it confirms a high-intensity, coordinated military action. He details the deployment of advanced air power, including F-16 and Gripen fighter jets.
Which is already a huge escalation. Then you add the use of cluster munitions.
Ooh, cluster munitions.
Whole different level. And it doesn't stop there. Armed drones, bombing drones, poisonous smoke, heavy artillery, long-range rocket mortars, tanks, and armored vehicles.
The use of F-16s and cluster munitions, as the letter specifies, That is completely inconsistent with some limited police action. This confirms the allegation of a planned, full-spectrum assault.
Absolutely. The simultaneous deployment of land, air, and naval forces combined with that arsenal, it all supports the claim that this was a deliberate military campaign to seize and hold territory.
But the humanitarian and cultural impact, that's the devastating core of this final argument, isn't it? Tain emphasizes the attacks weren't just on military targets.
No, not at all. The letter explicitly details attacks on innocent civilians, on refugee camps, on civilian infrastructure. That raises this to the level of potential war crimes.
He lists things like roads, schools, homes.
Homes, pagodas, temples, and historic Kara monuments, some of which you have to remember are listed as World Heritage Sites.
So targeting internationally protected cultural sites, that demonstrates an intent to inflict cultural damage far beyond any immediate military goal.
Tain's conclusion for this fifth point is stark. It's unavoidable. These actions, the depth, the scale, the targeted infrastructure, cannot be characterized as a lawful exercise of the right of self-defense. They are, he argues, a deliberate and manifest armed aggression.
So what does this all mean when we put the 5 arguments together? Tain presents this integrated case. The power disparity removes Cambodia's capacity for aggression.
The reliance on international legal maps proves Thailand is violating established law.
The history of ICJ success removes Cambodia's rational motive to fight.
The moral authority from peace prizes eliminates their moral motive.
And finally, the overwhelming scale and specific weaponry used confirm the aggression itself. It's a very complete picture.
And Tain's call to action elevates this way beyond Southeast Asia. He emphasizes that the stake here is not just Cambodia's sovereignty, but, and I'm quoting directly from the letter, the very credibility of the international order founded on the rule of law.
Meaning, if the international community stays silent or is ambiguous or just fails to act, it risks creating a very dangerous precedent.
It legitimizes the unlawful use of force over established international law. The silence, Tain is warning, it risks validating the idea that military might can simply overturn legal victories.
It signals to the world that if you don't like a court ruling, you can just start a war instead.
That's the danger.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. Given Cambodia's repeated success at the ICJ regarding Preah Vihear, what does this current military action, as detailed by Tain 800 kilometers of offensive using fighter jets and cluster munitions, what does it suggest about the effectiveness of international legal rulings versus raw military ambition in our modern world? And based on the compelling 5-point argument Tain presented, what is the necessary next step he demands the international community take to restore credibility to the rule of law?